Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor, sitting with Julie Gunlock. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Yes, as we get back into the swing of things here, we got a great show coming up today. Joining us later, Gary Katz, who's running for the Board of Supervisors in Loudoun County. We've got Amanda Irvin from the Alliance of Iranian Women, KT McFarland. Susan Ferrecchio from the Washington Times is going to join us as well. Joining us right now, though, Julie and I have been spending a lot of time this morning talking about what's going on our college campuses. Her name is Cherise Trump. She's the executive director of Speech First, an organization that has been leading the charge against the imposition of DEI on college campuses. And, Cherise, there is a direct relationship, a direct correlation between what's going on, the imposition of DEI on these college campuses, and the further radicalization is evidenced by what's been going on in the wake of the attacks in Israel, isn't there, Cherise?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, thanks so much for having me, first of all. I know it's bright and early this morning. Yeah, it's definitely, there's definitely a correlation here. And it's sad to see some of these letters coming out of the campuses, even though we're seeing so much evidence of video footage and pictures of the atrocities that Hamas is committing, and then to see campuses putting out flyers with paragliders on it. I mean, The Palestinians are not known for their paragliding. So there's only one rational connection there that they're trying to make, and saying that let's come together in a rally with these, this concept of Hamas and freeing Palestine. And it's just, there's a serious cognitive dissonance, and you can't help but ask yourself, where the heck is this coming from on campuses? Because, a lot of administrators and faculty now are saying they disassociate themselves with these clubs, but it took them at Harvard, in Harvard's case, it took them 2 days to actually put out a statement saying, this doesn't represent Harvard's viewpoint. Yeah. So, there's a lot of correlations here, and I'm happy to break it down more. I just think it's something that we really shouldn't be surprised by. The far left woke ideology, to be completely honest, does advocate for violence. They do believe that the ends justify their means. Oftentimes they use violent tactics. We've seen it with Antifa, Black Lives Matter. We've seen it on college campuses with shouting down speakers, throwing Molotov cocktails, burning buildings down. This is not new to them, the idea of using violence to exact their political agendas, but it is horrifying that they would be okay with taking it this far in the way that Hamas is.
Cherise, isn't that, I want to pull a little bit on what you've just said. Isn't that sort of the root of a lot of these universities being quiet, is ultimately they're very scared of these students, these radical students who, will go. We see what happens to these professors and to these sort of the faculty at these universities. They're shouted down. It is scary. So is that a little bit that they have created this monster that they now cannot control?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of different sentiments on campus when it comes to the administrators and the faculty. One, absolutely, is fear. They do fear the woke mob, and I think that's why it's really important that rational voices, conservative voices, and those who want to engage in open discourse and debate have the courage to speak out more, to show that there is a large percentage of the student body and of the faculty who actually want to engage with one another and who actually want to have these more interesting intellectual debates, and show that we don't want to just shout down speakers. We don't want to censor ourselves or to coerce one another, to show that there is additional support there. But also, I think there are bad actors on campus. We've seen a number of actual administrators, and primarily they do come out of these diversity, equity, and inclusion departments. Yes. We've seen a number of them using and manipulating students to exact their own political agendas. And, the students are, they have their own agency. They are capable of coming up to their own conclusions. But if they say something that's incredibly radical and abhorrent, and then you have administrators saying, yes, absolutely, let's create a protest around this, we'll encourage you to do it, and there's really no pushback at all or anyone there to challenge them on their ideas, it's only going to perpetuate it. And that's what we're seeing right now. We hold, at Speech First, we hold these types of administrators and the universities, when they are acting this way, accountable. We look at these various policies these DEI offices put out. They weaponize harassment policies. They weaponize something called bias reporting systems, where they encourage students to report on one another. Yeah, just to track everything and to put students through re-education courses, which they call sensitivity training. So there are definitely bad actors that need to be held accountable on campus. But yes, there is a good amount of fear there. And like I said, it really takes someone who's courageous enough to step up and speak out and really make a point here that intellectual diversity and discourse is, vital to an education.
It's funny. I've taught in the university setting, Cherise. In my classroom, I always fostered a sense of open debate and discussion that, as I said to my students, even if I disagree with you, I want you to feel free to, voice your opinions here. That was what I was trying to set. Julie just gave me the side eye there when I said that. But the point is, in the end, how much of this is students wanting to be fashionable on campus and the fashionability of radicalization on campus? How much of this is students who want to please the adults in their midst by emulating what the adults are saying? And how much of this is just student stupidity? You've got the folks who want to see the world burn. I mean, this creates a toxic mess. Talk a little bit about that.
I think a lot of it is the last point that you made. It is a lot of stupidity, and people just want to see the world burn. And there's no one pushing back on those ideas or enlightening them to new ideas or new ways of looking at the world. We got to remember, these kids are on social media all the time, and they grew up with it. They don't know another world. So everything they see on social media, which is the extreme version of every angle that you can imagine, right? So they're seeing all these extreme hot takes on everything. They're not reading books.
The hot takes, Julie.
Yeah, and they're not actually engaging with one another. I was just talking to a number of faculty across the country, and they tell me all the time that they don't have class discussion anymore. They just lecture and leave. And the reason they do that is because they're terrified of being reported for creating an unsafe environment by other students. And so when you're in a classroom and you're literally just seeing the basic lecture notes and you're not having an opportunity to explore the ideas, you're going to create environments where students are just going to cling on to their ideas, not engage with one another, and they're not going to learn how to actually debate. They're not going to learn how to stand up for their views properly, and they're just going to rely on what oftentimes are ignorant information. A lot of them haven't read the Constitution. They don't know the foundational laws and principles of this country. They don't know that it's un-American to shout down speakers or to shut down speech on campuses because they don't have that sentiment. They didn't grow up with that sentiment being taught to them.
Right.
It's a real concern here. And in fact, there was a survey, and this is when we're talking about ends justifying means and using violence to exact your political agenda. When there was a survey that just came out with College Pulse that said that I think about 30% of students say that it's okay to use violence to shut down speakers, to shut down a speech on campus.
This is the issue for the left. Speech is violence, and violence is a form of speech.
Right.
We're going to continue to talk about this with Cherise Trump. But first, it's 6:15 a.m. WMAL traffic.
Mark Levin, weeknights from 6 till 9.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
So we are back. We're joined by Cherise Trump. She is the executive director of Speech First, a wonderful organization talking about this. Julie, you had a question I rudely cut you off.
Not at all. I know it's a tight timeline. Cherise, I wanted you to comment on what I see as sort of a walking back of this anti-racism hysteria that we've had in the country over the last several years. Two notable things. There's been sort of a blow up at Boston University where Ibram X. Kendi has his anti-racist sort of grifty center. That's been kind of a disaster. But what was so interesting is maybe it was last week, in the New York Times, there was an opinion piece that said anti-racism was never the right answer. I love this. I mean, we have turned our country upside down, and racial tensions are at a high like they've never been. And then suddenly the New York Times has been pushing this equity and DEI and all the cancellation and all this stuff. And then suddenly they're like, oopsie. So is this truly a change? Are we seeing a shift?
Yeah, so I think there is, and this has a lot to do with the work that everyone's doing on the ground. This is the great thing about America is that you have you can express ideas and opinions, and then the hope is that if those opinions are incredibly wrong and those ideas are actually incorrect, then there's some sort of corrective measure in the open discourse and discussion and debate of kind of our free speech country. But what I think it's unfortunate to look at the damage that has been done on campuses, because we're talking millions upon millions of dollars being invested in these DEI departments, DEI initiatives, ESG taking over corporations in the banking and finance industries. You have various similar initiatives taking over the medical industry and other science fields. So the damage has been done. We are very, very behind, for example, on STEM research compared to other countries like China. And it's because we spent our time focusing all this energy on how do we make all of these research projects somehow benefit underrepresented minorities and go after white supremacy in the institutions, and instead of actually focusing on the research that needs to be done. I mean, the Biden administration has sent millions of dollars to schools to do research on things like microaggressions for Black women in AIDS studies. I mean, this is the type of money the government is putting into education right now. Yeah. So we have serious problems, and there's a lot of damage that has been done. I would have preferred to see a mea culpa from the New York Times. I would have preferred to see them not just walk it back, but actually say we are responsible for a lot of this damage and we apologize. We probably will never see that from them. But to me, it's a good sign that we are seeing people walk it back, that the proof is in the pudding when you see Ibram X. Kendi's institution just being a complete, like you said, like a grifter shop, a complete racket, this whole thing with the Black Lives Matter movement, just to make money and spend it on themselves. They don't actually care about the Black communities in this country. And so seeing all of that come to light and be exposed through organizations like ours and, the student organizations that exist on campus like Turning Point, YAL, and many of the other nonprofits out there pushing information and making sure the public is aware of what's going on. All of that effort this is what we're seeing. I believe that what you're talking about is the culmination of our effort and kind of seeing results finally. Yeah.
So real quick, Cherise, before we let you go, Riley Gaines was supposed to give a speech at Penn State. We had campus students arrested for flipping over tables during a protest or stuff on tables. The president of Penn State had just gave an impassioned speech or robotic video, about the rights of the First Amendment extending to even bigots like Riley Gaines, and then they canceled the speech. What? They canceled the speech. Talk about this.
Yeah, universities tend to do this to clubs, and it's actually really, really terrible to see because it is viewpoint discrimination. They don't do this to speakers from the left when they come onto campus. Yeah. What they do is they make it incredibly difficult for the clubs that want to host these conservative speakers to host them at all on campus. They require the clubs to pay enormous security fees, and they say that it's because of the safety measures that these extreme speakers bring to campus, so that if you're going to invite these speakers, you have to pay these fees. But what they do is they make it so difficult for the clubs to host them. They actually bar them essentially from hosting the individual on campus, and that's what happened with Riley Gaines. What's even more interesting about this story is what I've been told by the students on that campus who had reached out to us is that they were going to host her at the Hyatt locally instead, because they couldn't do it on campus. And when the Hyatt found out who she was, they actually also canceled the event.
Wow.
And didn't want to host her. Yeah, and then so now that's what ended up leading the situation where they had to cancel it overall. I mean, I hope Riley Gaines still sticks it out and goes over there and gets her voice out there. I know the president, again, like you said in that video, she encouraged students to protest. She says, we all have the right to free speech, and we support free speech on this campus, but you're totally okay to protest to shut down people's speech, which is like, again, when we talk about the cognitive dissonance here, oftentimes the students who want to shout down me when I come on the campus, they say, oh, we're just exercising our free speech rights. And I'm like, actually, when you're exercising your rights in order to take someone else's right away, you are exercising your right. You're just being a dictator, a totalitarian, a tyrant.
Your rights extend only as far as they don't violate my rights. Listen, Cherise Trump, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it. Cherise Trump, the executive director of Speech First. We got so much more to get to right
now
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, it is 6:37 here on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. I am Andrew Langer, sitting alongside my longtime friend and professional colleague, Julie Gunlock. Hello there, Julie.
Hello, good morning.
Listen, we're going to continue to talk about the speaker's race and what's going on campuses and what's going on in Israel. Going to be joined by Amanda Irvin, founder and president of the Alliance of Iranian Women. She is going to be talking about what's going on in Iran and Iranians protesting the regime's support of Palestinian terror. Going to be joined by KT McFarland. I can't wait to talk to her about what's going on the ground in Israel. And then Susan Ferriccio from the Washington Times. We got a speaker fight going on, Julie, and Susan's going to bring us up to speed as to what's going on there. In the meantime, listen, all eyes are on and should be on what's going on in Loudoun County. Loudoun County needs to get some control over what's happening in their government and their governance. Joining us right now is Gary Katz. He's a Republican candidate for chairman at large of the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. He's running against Phyllis Randall. And apparently she can't help herself, can she, Julie, making comments about what's going on in Israel. Gary, what did Phyllis Randall have to say about this?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
So, this has been a rough week, and we didn't need this coming from any of our elected officials. This is local politics. But Phyllis Randall wound up posting a manipulated image from The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which is a movie about the Holocaust. And it depicted a Jewish boy in a concentration camp. But in the manipulated image, a Palestinian boy is falsely portrayed behind the fence, while an Israeli boy is depicted outside the fence, which effectively vilifies Jews. And this is wrong. We also saw other likes that came on board where people are trying to politicize this about Israel versus Palestine. And then we saw likes being made by Chair Randall on Free Palestine. Look, I want to be very clear. There's no equivocation on this. There are not two sides here. Right? This is not about Israel versus Palestine. This is about terrorists versus the innocent people whom they are indiscriminately murdering, torturing, kidnapping, holding hostage, raping. This is absolutely wrong to put out posts like this. If anything, if there's any post that should go out there, we should be praying for the innocent civilian victims of the terrorist attack committed by Hamas, who doesn't ask, are you Jewish? Are you Christian? Are you atheist? Are you secular? Are you Israeli or American or German? They just entered in and started slaughtering people ISIS style. This is absolutely wrong.
Yeah, there's also some, I've seen on Twitter, some concerns about, I believe it's her chief of staff, Matt Rogers, and some of the tweets that he has put out there that are really concerning as well. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so apparently her chief of staff has put out anti-Semitic as well as anti-LGBTQ as well as misogynistic statements in the past on his Twitter feed that he still actively uses. I'll quote it and I'll shield it. Name an effing song I ain't threw up on. Talk is cheap like y'all grew up in a Jewish home. Or I'm on fire like a Molotov cocktail and I rock a lot of jewels like the Holocaust. Yeah, I wear a lot of chains like slavery. This is appalling, absolutely appalling. And I can't believe that this was not discovered or vetted before. Phyllis Randall, has had prior chiefs of staff who have embezzled money. In Loudoun County, we have a Commonwealth's attorney who hired a sex predator into the Commonwealth's attorney's office. How are we vetting these candidates for these positions? I simply don't understand it. And if this were about any other topic, if this were to come forward, I think that there'd be very strong condemnation, and I think that there should be strong condemnation on this. This is wrong, just currently wrong.
We're talking with Gary Katz. He's a Republican candidate for chairman at large of the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. And I just got to ask him, in Loudoun County, quiet Loudoun County, Gary, what's in the water? I mean, you formerly, I'm sorry, Julie looked at me, what do you mean? Formerly quiet Loudoun County, what's in the water out there that all of a sudden everything, all these radicals have taken over?
I don't know, Andrew. That's a really good question. that is why a lot of good people have stood up to say we need the adult hand at the wheel, and we need to
Yes.
make it so that we actually have reasonable people who are making decisions on behalf of the residents of Loudoun County so that we can put an end to the divisiveness and the vitriol that we're seeing across the board.
Well, it's interesting. Nick Minnock yesterday on Twitter was talking about a big event in Washington, D.C. The Ghana Embassy is kicking off this Ghanese traditions and cultural event. It's a week-long event. And Nick Minnock made the good point of saying it's interesting that this wasn't held in Loudoun County, since Phyllis Randall and many other Loudoun officials took a luxury trip to Ghana, to the sister city. That's pretty curious. Why was that not hosted by Loudoun County?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I don't organize those events. I'd say the question is still hold as to why these trips to Ghana and Uruguay and other locations were held in the first place when they brought back no return into the county that actually was for which they were intended to. These trips were ostensibly to bring back economic development into Loudoun County, but we haven't seen a dollar come back from this at all. So there's a whole lot of questions about how are we leveraging and investing the dollars that are intended to help grow the economic base in Loudoun County, and why aren't these being put to good use so that we can actually continue to increase our commercial base?
Well, listen, Gary, we have to leave it there. Good luck to you on your race. We've got so much more coming up at 6:43 on WMAL. Well, we are back, and as the craziness continues, Julie, we got Michael Hayden adding to the mix here. The former director of the CIA, General Michael Hayden, tweeted out something rather unfortunate, didn't he?
Oh, he did.
Yeah. So again, listen, I've been down this road. If you are a senator, you have the right or the power to put holds on nominations. And we have a situation in the Senate where Senator Tommy Tuberville is rightfully holding up nominations for senior positions at the Pentagon because he wants assurances that the Department of Defense is going to follow federal law when it comes to not getting involved, not funding abortions, which is this is an important issue.
It is. Yes.
And so this is an ongoing situation. It is a political situation. And guess what? By the way, again, within the senator's power to do this. So you have the former CIA director. Somebody tweeted out. So Natalie Jacoby tweets out, should Tommy Tuberville be removed from his committee? Sent this out a couple of days ago. And Michael Hayden turns around and writes, well, how about the human race? I.e., how about removing him from the human race?
Yeah.
In other words,
he should be
it's
assassinated.
A death threat. Yes,
it's a death threat. Absolutely.
I mean, this is I'm not going to make a joke about this because, again, in the context of everything else, this is serious stuff. Again, the former CIA director essentially calling for the assassination of a sitting United States senator over a policy difference. I mean, this is where we are today, Julie. I'm not sure how we come back from this. Your thoughts?
No,
here.
I agree. I mean, it is incredibly chilling to see a United States senator threatened like this. But there won't be any cost, Andrew. That's the thing. These leftists can say whatever they want, and there won't be any cost. And then you have a mainstream media who props these people up and doesn't cover an actual threat to a senator's life. I mean, let's not forget in Alexandria, Virginia, just a few miles down the road from where we're broadcasting right now.
Right.
24 Republican members of Congress were a Bernie bro attempted to murder them, and that also got memory hold by not only the media but the Democrat leadership in Alexandria, Virginia, that could barely even issue a statement about the horror of that day.
Which, by the way, is one of the reasons why I think Steve Scalise should have been named Speaker years ago. Because I'm sorry, if you take a bullet for the country in your service as a member of Congress, you should, frankly, be elevated to Speaker immediately. And listen, I'm only being, I'm only half joking there with that. And here's the thing that Hayden, who, by the way, is also a CNN analyst, let's be really clear about this, doubled down on this. He tweets out, I was surprised to wake up this morning and discover that many MAGA nuts, because there's only MAGA nuts who are concerned that he's calling for the assassination of a senator, that many MAGA nuts had lost their minds over my suggestion that Coach Tuberville is not considered a member of the human race. I stand by that view. I'm wishing you all a nice day, even the intransigent Tommy Tuberville.
Okay.
Let's be really clear. He was not saying that Tommy Tuberville should not be considered a member of the human race. He was saying he should be removed from the human race.
I will also say, let's not forget that this guy Hayden, he was in the thick of the Biden laptop cover-up story,
right,
and in the thick of the Russian collusion scam. So let's not forget who this guy is, okay? This guy, I mean, I love that his comments on who's a good American and who should be removed, because his excuse was like, oh, no, I was just saying, like, you know, he should be removed from civil society. No, it was a death threat. And why nobody is moving on this? Where's the Capitol Police? Where's the FBI? This is a threat against a senator. This is actionable. This should be followed up, but it won't be.
And let's also be really clear about something. I have nothing but respect and admiration for our members of our armed forces. And you know, we have, you know, professional leaders who are going to continue to do their jobs regardless of whether or not nominees get held up in the Senate. By the way, that's the way it works in our society, is that our military is subordinate to our legislative branch in no small measure because of the separation of powers. That's the way the Constitution sets it up, and for good reason. But the reality is, what's compromising the military's effectiveness isn't Tommy Tuberville holding up nominations being confirmed. It is the fact that we've engaged in all of this DEI nonsense and all of this leftist progressive experimentation using our military as the laboratory. That's what affects our military's effectiveness. It's 6:53 here on O'Connell Company, WMAL.